Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, Tuesday Nation Football is here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. We did not have a live show yesterday, so I had some meetings and stuff, but hopefully you guys checked out those clips, because I did do some segments yesterday that were kind of fun. The immigration story, not quite as fun. So if you check that out after the stream later on, if you haven't already. So we've got a lot of news stories today. We're going to try to cover a lot of ground here. We'll have some fun. We'll start out with Eric Trump. Then we've got an important announcement, I guess, from the DHS on Russian activity. Very interesting. Then we've got the Daily Caller versus Ocasio-Cortez. You're going to love that story. I've got video for that. That is amazing. Okay. Then we're going to talk about some regulations. The Trump administration trying to kill those regulations. We have accidentally released documents from the Interior Department. That's run by Ryan Zinke. That's interesting. We got people being purged from the voter rolls. All sorts of stuff. So it's going to be a good show. Stick around for the next hour as I go around the nation for some of the best stories and progressive political commentary that you can find on the web. All right. So that said, if you haven't already, please give us a like and a share, or at least please share the stream so that gets out. Interesting stuff, by the way, on the YouTube front. So I've noticed the past couple of days, I had an old video back in 2016. Best video that I guess, not best video I've done, but the most widely viewed video of the entire channel that I did. It's back in circulation. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, what is going on here? Why am I like, I'm actually getting good views. So I'm like, hey, great. That's awesome. But I'm like, what video is that? Oh, it turns out I go back and I look. It's a video from 2016. Weird. It was, of course, about that doctor that was on a plane. There was somebody that needed medical attention. And she's like, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. Yeah, you're not a doctor. We're going to go and pick somebody else. What are you talking about? I'm exactly what you're looking for, and this person's in need. No, we don't believe that you're a doctor. Why? It's because they're black. So that video, weirdly enough, is back in circulation. I don't understand why. But hey, you know what? I'll take it. Fun times. But anyway, so lots of weird stuff going on YouTube. But that's good. That's actually one of the better things that's happened on this platform in quite some time. So I'm not going to complain. Just thought it was real strange. All right. Anyway, I suppose we should get into the stories. We are here for news, after all. So let's dive in. Let's start with the first story. Mr. Eric. The apple did not fall far from the tree. Okay. So Eric Trump is actually known as one of the dumber Trump sons. I know. Whether he's the dumbest Trump son, I don't know. I guess it's kind of a toss-up, really. But to show you how Eric might take the mantle from Don Jr., earlier today, he decided to tweet out a poll. Now, this poll actually showed how many Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's performance as president, so his job approval rating, right? Now, Eric linked to a tweet by Bloomberg News correspondent Sahil Kapoor showing President Donald Trump's approval rating had actually risen slightly to 45%. Now, that's the highest mark of his presidency. So he sees that, and he's like, nailed it. Yes. Oh, look at that. MAGA. I'm going to tweet that out. That's awesome. 45%. But wait a minute. That's actually terrible. In that same poll, a solid 52% majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's job performance. But he tweets that out with little American flags, right? And is like, nailed it. Nailed it. The Twitter reaction is fucking priceless. Let me read this. Matt Negrin tweets out, Eric, I'd DM you if I could, but you should delete this. This is an embarrassing poll for Trump. FYI, just a friend here trying to help you out. God bless. So here's somebody who admittedly is like, dude, no, this is bad. This is really, really bad. You're embarrassing yourself. Pull it back. Delete the tweet. Delete the... You know what? That wouldn't do anything anyway, because once it's on the internet, it lasts forever. So good luck. Nonetheless, that's the nicest tweet. Let me go to some more of the fun ones, right? Now, let me see. PC7 says, you think this is a good thing? God, you're stupid. Martin Keene tweets, read it again. More than half a country disapproves of the job your daddy is doing. Not exactly something to get excited about. Sally Spike says, Eric, I'm guessing you might suck at math. 52 is in fact greater than 45. Just thought you should know. And then, of course, punctuates that with saying, dumbass. Gary Wayne says, I hate to tell you, but 45% approval rating is not good enough to keep the House or Senate in November. In fact, that's not very good at all. And there were other polls showing that Democrats generally have a 17-point advantage when it comes to House elections now. That is insanity. But that's great. And it shows you how unhappy people are with the Trump administration, despite the fact that the economy is actually not bad. And that's, of course, a continuation from the Obama economy, of course. And Donald Trump did, look, here's the thing about tax cuts, right? So tax cuts do offer a short-term stimulative effect. So that's why, okay, hey, the economy is already doing pretty good. Now we're going to give you some tax cuts. Hey, a little bit of a jolt back in the economy. Now, some of that is false. Some of that is just inflationary, for example, the stock market. So when Trump gave all these corporations gigantic tax cuts, what did they do? Well, they didn't really reinvest it into their workers. Some people did get small bonuses, but in general, there weren't really a lot of raises, anything that was significant. In fact, all wage gains have actually been wiped out by inflation. Congratulations. So people are actually not making any more than they did. And not only that, but look, most of these companies took that money and they went and bought back their own stock. They bought stock buybacks that artificially inflated their stock prices. Now, that's great for executives, but how's that good for you? It's not. And it's actually not good for the long-term health of Wall Street, because then again, these companies are not doing better. They're not selling more product. They're not making more things. All they're doing is that they're putting out the false impression that they're doing better, and then, of course, making more money at the top at the executive level. That is not good. That is a very negative thing long-term. And so that's going to have repercussions on the economy. But anyway, right now, the point is Donald Trump is actually doing terrible under a pretty decent economy. So you got to wonder what the problem is here. Okay? But anyway, let me give you some more tweets. Patty says, poor little guy doesn't understand. This says most people don't like what your father is doing. Even more people just don't like who he is as a human being. And that kind of goes to my last point. He's such an odious human being that people look at that and be like, "What? I might be doing a little bit better. There is more jobs, and you know, if you don't add in the context of it being a continuation from the Obama economy, well then they just look at Donald Trump and they're like, ugh, fuck that guy. But anyway, one more, Dante Invictus, and I like this because I like his name. He says he's so dumb he doesn't realize this poll is not a good thing. Awesome. Now look, again, there is a little bit of a contest to see whether or not Eric or Donald Jr. is the dumbest Trump child ever. So maybe I should run a poll. What do you guys think? Who's dumber, Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr.? Let me know in the comments. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's do some more serious stuff. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Russian hackers had penetrated the electric grid. And so now this comes from, like I said, the Wall Street Journal, who reported this on Monday. They said that Russian hackers had gained access to the network of U.S. electric utilities last year. Now, they said that that could have allowed them to cause blackouts, according to federal government officials who said that the campaign of hacking is likely continuing. Now, look, I'm not really comfortable calling it hacking. I'm just reading it verbatim. I'm going to explain why later. But they said that the hackers, who work for a Russian state-sponsored group known as Dragonfly, or Energetic Bear, claimed hundreds of victims in 2017, according to the officials at the Department of Homeland Security. Now, here's what they used, and here's why I'm not really calling them hackers. They used conventional tools such as spear phishing emails and watering hole attacks that would trick victims into entering their passwords and then gained access to corporate networks of suppliers, which then allowed them to steal credentials and gain access to utility networks, according to that report. Jonathan Homer, chief of industrial control system analysis for the DHS, says, quote, they had gotten to the point where they could have thrown switches. So shutting things down, turning things on, shutting them off. They could, according to DHS, if you believe the report, that's what they could do if they wanted to. Now, DHS plans to conduct 4 briefings as it's searching for evidence on the Russians attempting to automate their attacks. Investigators cited by the Wall Street Journal said it was not clear whether this was done by the hackers in preparation for a bigger future attack. So there's that report. Okay. Now, for one, here's a couple of points. Don't get freaked out by the word hacker, okay? Now, I think calling them hackers is a bit of a stretch. What they did is they did something that somebody who's a little bit versed in computers could actually figure out how to do. What they did is they emailed a link disguised as something else, something that might be legitimate. They got someone to click on it, and that would take them to a website that they created, which had them put in their password. Once they know that password, or they have like a keylogger, they can take that password, and then they can say, okay, well, I've got access now to your email. I've got access to your accounts. I can lock you out. I can change the password, or I can just go in and I can steal information and do all this different stuff, right? The point is that this is not necessarily sophisticated nor all that scary, but it is very simple to do, and I guess maybe that point is actually scary. It's actually, though, very simple to beat. How do you beat it? Well, you just make sure not to click on random things that end up in your inbox. I mean, look, that makes sense, right? Even if it comes from a trusted source. This isn't like the general what you think of when you think of hacking. Because, like, I got news for you. Like, the 1980s movie Hackers, not right. In fact, most of what you see on TV in regards to hacking is actually incorrect. So I kind of use the term loosely, although this is more of like, we're going to spoof an account or we're going to spoof a website. We're going to do all that stuff, right? So again, it's not super sophisticated. Now, consequently, this is the same thing that happened to the DNC, the DCCC, and Clinton staffers during the election. John Podesta got spearphished. So they were able to gain access to his account, download all those emails, and then leak those emails out or give those emails to third parties. So that's kind of what happened. So how do you stop it? Well, the solution is train your employees. I mean, most people don't understand that can actually happen. And they can fall for such a simple trick. Now, for one, you've got to remind your users to stop before, to stop before they click on any links in any emails. And make sure to hover over the hyperlink to see the destination URL. If it looks shady, it likely is. And if you're not sure about an email, check with the sender. Also, never send confidential information via email. Avoid posting too much information, personal information that people can use to be able to get into your account. Or, well, not to get into your account, but to try to email you with information to entice you to click on certain links. So doing these things actually might have stopped a lot of issues. Now, there is malware attacks and things like that that also happen. But look, let's go on to why. Okay. So here's the technical stuff. So what country wouldn't want to disrupt somebody they see as an adversary, right? Let's keep it real. The United States has likely used cyber warfare against its own adversaries. And so we've done it. We spy on our allies spy on us, and of course adversaries will attempt to use cyber warfare against each other. Not only that, but look, we've also employed a lot of conventional drone warfare in other countries. So that does happen. But it doesn't matter if it's China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, or any other country. We need to make sure that our systems, our voting systems, our power utilities, things like that are secure. And there are certain things that you can actually take, certain actions you can take that will actually help with that. Now, for one, upgrading infrastructure I think is important, doing training, because I think cyber warfare is going to increase as we become more, and already are, reliant on a lot of technology. As far as Russia is concerned, I'm not surprised that this could be the case. Now, the question is not what we do to retaliate against Russia, but what do we do to protect our own infrastructure? And I think that's the important thing. Okay. Okay. Let's move on here. So Virginia Kruta is a writer for the Daily Caller. Now, the Daily Caller is a very conservative publication, and she decided to travel into the belly of the beast and see what the fuss is about when it came to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, she had wrote an op-ed based on her experience in the Daily Caller. Let me read some of that. She said, over the years, I have attended my share of political events, Tea Party protests, a Rick Perry speech on tax cuts, a Ted Cruz rally, and even a speech given by President Donald Trump earlier this year. But nothing prepared me for the stark difference in tone. And what does she mean by that? I mean, look, I guess hearing Ted Cruz talk about or do a rally or Rick Perry talking about tax cuts, I mean, I guess it's different than an actual energetic rally with real people. Just saying. But no, let's go forward into what she thinks is the tone. She says, I was surrounded by a group of women who were discussing over drinks the reasons they had gotten involved in politics. The two things they all had in common were anger and fear. One even said, quote, "I just couldn't stand being angry and afraid all the time." Look at those liberals. They're so angry. They're always so afraid. They're pissed off. Well, let me give you a couple of reasons why people should be angry and afraid. For one, Roe v. Wade might actually be in a little bit of danger. Thanks to, of course, the Supreme Court opening and the possibility of Judge Kavanaugh. But you don't think corporate Democrats would actually vote to confirm Kavanaugh? Well, they did confirm Judge Gorsuch. Looking at Manchin, Heitkamp, a lot of these conservative Democrats that won in very red states. So that is a possibility, even though it actually probably will be further off into the future. But anyway, let's go further, right? We also have a president that constantly tweets out threats to other countries. Like, for example, Iran or North Korea. And you can say, well, North Korea worked out great. Well, did it? What did we actually get from the North Korea deal? Did we get any sort of nuclear verification? Did they actually sign on to something that was complete nuclear disarmament? They did not. In fact, satellite imagery showed that they're actually expanding their nuclear facilities. Wonderful. Congratulations. Didn't really do a whole lot. Not only that, but President Trump's been putting tariffs on allied countries. And look, that has hurt a lot of farmers. In fact, President Trump is coming out with legislation, or not legislation, but with a call for legislation to help embattled farmers affected by the tariffs. You also have companies like Harley-Davidson that are relocating to Thailand, and all sorts of different things going on. So, look, if you're not scared about your job, if you're not scared about, the economy, if you're not scared about being impacted by the tariffs, well, then you're not paying attention. Now, as far as anger goes, well, look, a lot of us have been screwed over by the establishment Democrats, establishment Republicans, especially Republicans as of lately because of taxes, healthcare, social programs. When that happens, it tends to make you a little bit angry. So, in fact, as I said before, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. But of course, this whole narrative is basically crafted as, look at these angry liberals, snowflakes. But anyway, here's the thing. Go back to the Tea Party, right, and tell me that people weren't angry. Those Tea Party protests, yes, those people were actually angry. And originally, they were actually mad about the bank bailouts. Until, of course, that changed, and suddenly the message is, be mad at Obama, be mad at Obamacare. So, but anyway, that is a little bit of context. Now let's get to the truly terrifying part. Ocasio-Cortez spoke, followed by Bush, and this is her writing. And that's Cori Bush, by the way, who she's stumping for. And I saw something truly terrifying. I saw just how easy it would be, were I less involved and less certain of our nation's founding and its history, to fall for the populist lines they were shouting from that stage. Now, let me mention that those populist lines are actually things like, I don't know, a living wage, healthcare. But wait, let me go into her quotes on that. She said, quote, "I saw how easy it would be as a parent to accept the idea my children deserve healthcare and education. I saw how easy it would be as someone who has struggled to make ends meet to accept the idea that a living wage was a human right. Above all, I saw how easy it would be to accept the notion that it was the government's job to make sure those things were provided." Well, certainly the private sector is not doing a fantastic job about that. That is, to her, terrifying. This has got to be like a satire piece. She's like, oh my God, terrifying how people who are doing terrible, who are being crushed by the system, who have seen their wages be stagnant throughout, for the last 30, 40 years. To see that message and go, yeah, I like that. I like that message. That resonates with me. She thinks that's terrifying. Amazing. And she still must be reeling from that horrible ideal ordeal having to go there, right? In fact, she's going to go on Fox News, and she's going to explain how she felt when she was there. Take a look at that.
Virginia, as a conservative, when you're sitting in that audience or standing in that audience and you're listening to that message, how did it make you feel? Were you angry? Were you more drawn to that?
I was mostly uncomfortable because I was surrounded by a group of people who were talking about how they had gotten involved because they were tired of being angry all the time. And it seems like so much effort to be angry about everything instead of to focus on what you could do to change it.
I felt uncomfortable. I mean, these people talking about how they're angry. And it must be so hard being angry all the time without doing anything to change it. That's why they're there. That's why they're there supporting a candidate. That's why they're getting involved in the political process. Because they want to change things. That's amazing. Well, they're just sitting around at a campaign rally supporting politicians who promise change and are actually pushing for that change. But you know, they should be doing something instead. They are doing something. That's hilarious, man. Now, as far as being uncomfortable, I wonder if she felt uncomfortable at that Trump speech she went to. You know, probably he was either talking about himself, how much he won it over Hillary Clinton, probably a little bit of lock her up got thrown in there, hatred against immigrants, things like that. I wonder if she was uncomfortable then. I don't know. But here's the thing. I think they're scared. I think they're terrified of progressives. I think they're terrified of the message. And look, I talk to people, you know, over Twitter, and more like getting into arguments, but still, where they don't address the policy themselves, right? They don't address why they think it wouldn't work. They obfuscate. And they're like, socialism, Venezuela. Socialism, Venezuela. It's not going to work, Venezuela. Okay, do you have any specific reason that we couldn't do universal health care, a Medicare for all single-payer system like every other single industrialized country? Venezuela. That's the answer. Venezuela and socialism is immoral. But it's not actual, like, pure socialism, right? It's social democracy, which is being interchanged, of course, with democratic socialism now. But they obfuscate, and they don't understand what that actually means, and they don't want to understand because there's no actual intellectual curiosity on that. There is no actual way to, or you know, there's no desire, there's no want to try to figure that out. So it's crazy. But they do that because they don't have a good argument against that. They know that progressives do eventually win, and that when we do, we're actually going to try to make life better for everybody. And once we do that, again, that means political wins, and that means we get into power, and usually stay into power. And they don't want that. Let's just keep it real. It is about power, and it's about keeping their power. Okay. That's it on that. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. More stuff. Stay right here around the nation. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, TNT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. I've got a couple of super chats that I want to read before I get going on to the rest of the segment, or rest of the show here. We have, we just have two super chats from Platypi and What Do You Mean? So thank you. I appreciate that. Super chats help keep the show going. So if you have a question, comment, or whatever, you can use the super chat, and that actually goes to help the show. Okay. That said, if you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. And let's dive into the next story. Oh, the horror. That's not it, though. Okay. So the Trump administration is looking at a plan that would deregulate fuel efficiency standards. So this is targeted actually towards California, and it would basically revoke California's unique ability to impose stricter air pollution controls. So again, this is fuel efficiency, and this is also air pollution. So that's actually a bit of a disastrous plan. So before I get into the details, I just want to mention how great it is to see that Republicans care so much about states' rights. I mean, the right of California to do their own regulations on fuel standards. Totally respect that. They totally do. Anyway, the move basically aims to undo some of the top tools in the U.S. for combating climate change, which was promoted by former President Barack Obama, which I guess explains why the Trump administration is targeting this. Look, the administration has been going after pretty much all of the climate progress put in by the last administration. And that's not a surprise because, Trump hates Obama. I think there's a little bit of jealousy there. But also, his administration is not friendly towards the environment. But anyway, Bloomberg is reporting that the federal government is now planning to freeze vehicle emission standards as its 2020 targets through 2026. That would cap fuel economy requirements at 35 miles per gallon rather than 50 miles per gallon for all vehicles in 2025, as laid out during Obama's presidency. Now, the White House would also seek to revoke California's special waiver from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that allows the state to set stricter air pollution rules than those imposed nationwide under the Clean Air Act. Again, states' rights. Now, since then, California had been able to operate its own strict regulatory scheme, which dramatically cut pollution levels, such as in cities like Los Angeles. Now, they had a problem before the EPA. They had a huge problem with smog. They were able to clean that up because they were able to put these regulations into place. Now, California also led the nation by requiring automakers to cut greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles with 2004 regulations to slow global warming. Now, the new rules mean the state, which accounted for 2 million in new car sales last year, would actually lose its role as a trendsetter for reducing emissions nationwide. Now, to show you how much of a trendsetter California actually was, China modeled its own program to boost zero-emission vehicles on California's. So they looked at California and said, you're actually doing something right. Oops. Now you have the Trump administration muscling in with big government saying, no, you can't do that. You can't put more regulation on. You have to have less regulation like the rest of the country. I mean, what do you think this is? The United States of America? You think you have states' rights? No, states' rights only apply when we're trying to oppress gay people. Do you guys get the memo? Now, the changes, of course, would benefit car companies. Why? Because they're no longer being forced to build more efficient vehicles for California standards. So that's good for corporations, not so good for you. Not only that, but there will also end up being more air pollution. In fact, it's estimated, thanks to the energy consultancy Rhodium Group, that's actually the cost of how much gas you're going to pay. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, the air pollution will be equivalent to opening 28 new coal plants. So that air pollution, with the rollback of these regulations, is equal to 28 new coal-fired power plants. Wow. That's a lot. Not only that, but according to the energy consultancy Rhodium Group, drivers will also be estimated to pay an extra $193 billion for gas through 2035. So, wow. I mean, look, how else are oil companies supposed to make money? Not only do car manufacturers get to skimp out and save more money on their bottom line, so are oil companies. Because, look, won't somebody please think of the poor oil companies? Well, the Trump administration they have shown over and over again that they are only a friend to the oil and gas industry and to industry in general, not a friend to the environment, certainly not a friend of native populations, and certainly not a friend to any sort of environmental regulations at all. And look, they've been rolling back regulations in the federal level, of course, but now you see they're targeting states that want to do their own regulations at a time when really we need to go the other direction. We don't need stupid regulations. We need actual good regulations like these, like fuel efficiency standards. That would do a lot to help out when it comes to not only using less oil and putting out less pollution, saving people money, and allowing us to use some of that money to transfer over to green energy sources. Are we going in that direction? Unfortunately, no. And right now, it's because the government has essentially been captured by fossil fuel interests thanks to money in politics. So just remember that, especially if you're living in California and your cities start to get smoggy again. Well, remember who made that change. Vote accordingly. Okay. So this story is not going to be too much of a surprise. Turns out that documents that were released reveal that agency officials had been dismissing evidence that public lands provided numerous benefits in favor of prioritizing fossil fuel interests, along with the interests of ranchers and loggers. Big surprise. Here you have the government saying that, the Department of Interior, headed by Ryan Zinke, saying, oh, no, we love corporations. We love these companies, and we think that we should prioritize them over anything else. Now, what's funny, these documents were released and then quickly retracted. Like, oh, no, I didn't mean to release that. Give it back. In fact, let me tell you what they actually wanted them to do. But first, according to the Washington Post, thousands of emails sent between Interior Department officials had dismissed the benefits of establishing national monuments. Now, that included evidence of an uptick in tourism and archaeological discoveries. So those are some of the reasons that we would like to keep these areas, especially from exploitation. Also, the fact that maybe it's nice to have an area that is not exploited by oil and gas or mining or anything like that. Now, under Ryan Zinke, the agency intentionally tailored a survey of protected sites, emphasizing instead the value of fossil fuel extraction and other industry endeavors. Now, look, if you're a conservative, isn't part of being a conservative conserving things? What happened to conserving the environment? I mean, apparently that is no longer part of what conservatism actually is. Basically, what they want to do is just conserve money for the rich and corporations. Wonderful. But hey, at least we know what they're all about. Now, The Interior Department had actually released these documents in response to a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, sending them to journalists and advocacy groups on July 2016. Then the agency then removed the communications a day later, saying that they had been posted in error. Oops. In fact, officials said, "It appears that we inadvertently posted an incorrect version of the files for most recent National Monuments production. We are requesting that if you downloaded the files already, please delete those versions and we'll send you something else." Wait a minute. Yes, just go ahead and delete those documents that indicate that what we actually believe. And we believe that all these monuments, not necessary. No, we want these monuments to be exploited by natural gas, by industry, by mining, by logging companies. That's what we believe in. Now, the briefly released emails contain numerous redactions relating to a review of 27 national monuments requested by President Trump in April of 2017. Now, look, the reason that they redact those, of course, is because, well, we don't want them to know about the process. Want to bet, I don't know how much you want to bet, if they do end up releasing these again, they will still end up being redacted. Just saying. But anyway, now Zinke, in response to Trump's request, who once pledged that selling off our public lands is a non-starter, conducted a 4-month review. So much for a non-starter, right? The final result was a recommendation to shrink at least 10 monuments and modify 6 others. Now, Trump has already shrunk 2 of those, Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante in Utah. Those monuments, by the way, will now officially be open to mining on Friday. So, this week. So, congratulations. These national monuments now belong to corporations. They can mine in them at their pleasure. Now, of course, a lot of people are angry about this. And we're angry about the review, including indigenous communities, environmental advocates, and lawmakers. They said that review at the time was full of inaccuracies and that the process lacked transparency, and that the emails released last week appear to corroborate those accusations and showing that Zinke's agency purposely warped the review. So I think that's the most damning thing here. Yes, we knew that they were going to put corporations over people, profits over people, and allow these companies to go in and mine and log and do all that stuff. But the interesting part about that is that now we have evidence that the office of the Interior, headed up by Zinke, warped the review intentionally so that they could have these industries be able to go in there and mine in these national monuments. Now, the revelations also build on previous emails obtained by the New York Times and back in March. Now, those revealed that oil and gas drilling were a key incentive for the Trump administration to shrink national monuments. A uranium firm also lobbied for the downsizing of Bears Ears. And throughout the review process, the new documents show Interior officials buried material that would have justified the current size of the monuments under scrutiny. In one instance, Interior Department redacted comments from a Bureau of Land Management officials, finding it unlikely that the Obama administration's designation of Bears Ears as a national monument greatly impacted timber production. So, again, they're burying material, they're obfuscating, they're hiding, so that they can have these industries come in and be able to do whatever they want, which will end up making them money. That's what this is about. In another email, lead review staffer Randall Bowman advocated for deleting language about minimal returns of commercial fishing near the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Marine National Monument. This section, while accurate, Bowman wrote, seems to me to undercut the case for the commercial fishing closure being harmful, meaning that it wasn't harmful and that they should have kept these monuments the same size. They didn't have to shrink them. Instead, what they did is officials seemingly sought out information to support industry efforts. BLM official Nikki Moore wrote on July 3rd of 2017 about economic reports pertaining to various monuments under review, each of which contained paragraphs pertaining to the value of energy and or materials foregone as a result of the designations. So basically what that means is that, of course, the Trump administration, the Interior Department, they're all working for corporate interests. They're not working for you. They're not working for the best interests of the environment. They all work for corporations. And these emails prove it. Now you know. Okay. All right. Moving on here. So there's a new report out by the Brennan Center that's showing how states are increasing the purges of voter rolls going into the 2018 midterms and into the 2020 election. Now, here's some context before we get into the details. So back in 1993, Congress passed the National Voter Registration Act, which was an attempt to make registering to vote easier by offering licensed applicants the opportunity to register to vote. Now, the law also prevented states from purging voters unless they met certain requirements, meaning you can't just go and purge people off the rolls for no good reason. You actually have to have a good reason. Okay. Now, unfortunately, the Brennan report highlights how states have decided to skirt that law and have actually purged voters without any sort of punishment for doing so. Now, that, of course, happened after the court dismantled the requirements for pre-clearance with the Shelby v. Holder ruling. So that, of course, is a direct strike against the Voting Rights Act. So that basically said that states with histories of voter discrimination no longer required federal pre-clearance before purging their voter rolls. So they can purge it for any reason that they want. Now, the impact, of course, has been disastrous. Between 2014 and 2016, 16 million registered voters were removed from the state rolls. That's 33% more than were moved between 2006 and 2008. Now, for the elections of 2012 and 2016, the Brennan Center estimates that 2 million fewer voters would have been purged if those states had to apply by the provisions of the Voting Rights Act. And that is, of course, Section 5. Now, I'm not saying all voter purges are a terrible thing. This actually happens fairly often. But see, there are actual good reasons to purge voters from the rolls. For example, people who die. Well, you don't want dead people on the rolls, right? Conservatives always complain about that. Oh, it's dead people voting. Yeah, they get removed from the polls. That they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be on the voter rolls. Not only that, but you have people who moved or are no longer in that district. They get purged from the rolls. That's fine. All that's fine. However, this is different and actually far more insidious. Now, here's some examples from the report. In June of 2016, the Arkansas Secretary of State had given a list of 7,700 names to county clerks to be removed from the rolls. Why? Well, felony convictions, right? Well, we can't let felons vote. I actually think we should restore voting rights to felons who have served their time, depending on the crime. Now, the problem with this is that this list included people who had actually never been convicted of a felony and formerly convicted persons whose voting rights had actually been restored. So that, look, not even having a felony, much less, of course, serving your time and actually having your voting rights restored, not being able to vote because of those things, disastrous. Okay, there's more. In 2013, Virginia deleted 39,000 names from its voting roster, which, again, is a very large amount of people. In some counties, the mistakes on the list of those people were as high as 17%. So a lot of the people who were purged from the voter rolls didn't even know it, and they were done by mistake. And that's the other thing, right? So You have a system right now that can purge you from the voter rolls and then not actually tell you. So if you actually are interested in voting, you go up and you try to vote, and you find out, oh, you're not eligible because you're not registered. You're purged from the voter rolls. Well, when did that happen? Nobody told me about it. Well, turns out they don't have to. That is definitely something that needs to change. Now, there's more. Another example. Federal court had actually halted a purge after Hurricane Katrina after justices found that 1/3 of the purged names came from a majority black parish of New Orleans. So this, of course, goes to the notion that most of the people that are being purged from the rolls, they're not affluent white voters in the suburbs. Can you see? These are urban voters. These are people who are minorities. And so on and on it goes. On and on it goes. Now, Alabama, Indiana, and Maine have also instituted the cross-check system, cross-check interstate, which, of course, purges voters without federally mandated notifications, and also does so based on basically your name. If you have a similar name to somebody somewhere else, well, they can purge you from the rolls. And normally, it always happens to target African American and Latino voters. Now, it's not an accident. They go after those communities on purpose. Now, some of the reasons that they're able to be caught up in these voter purges is, for one, black and Hispanic voters seem more likely to move, often in the same jurisdiction, but voter purges based on address happen to eliminate them from voting. Officials also use something called voter caging, which intentionally sends mail to verify addresses in a format that cannot be forwarded, leading to the disenfranchisement of possibly hundreds of thousands of eligible voters. And of course, there's the other thing. Thanks to our high incarceration rate of people of color, African Americans are more likely to have felony convictions. Not only that, but elderly and minority voters are also more likely to be incapacitated, which is another reason for them to get purged from the voter rolls. Add that to the many other ways that votes are depressed, and you see a bit of a pattern, but more importantly, you see a motive. Who's the people passing these things? Who are the people that are actually looking to do voter purges? It usually happens to be Republicans. Now, of course, you could point to 2016 during the primary and also look at what happened in New York, in Brooklyn. There were some voter purges. There's a lot of voters that were purged that could not vote in that presidential primary. And I heard a lot about that. So it's not that Democrats don't do it. They do. But it happens that a majority of people that are trying to do this are Republicans. So, look, the main reason that they try to do this, too, is they don't want black people to vote. Now, they'll lie and actually say, no, it's about protecting our elections. In fact, we've got so much voter fraud, in-person voter fraud, right? No, actually, that's numerous studies have shown that voter fraud, in-person voter fraud, is virtually non-existent. And when it actually does happen, most likely it's somebody who's a Republican or somebody who just does it by mistake. And that happens as well. So, look, the reason that they do it is when there are high turnout, they tend to lose. Just go back to Paul Weyrich, where he said, look, when more people vote, we tend to lose more. So we don't want people voting. We want less people voting and more of our people voting. He is the father of the modern conservative movement. And his teachings continue to be espoused today. And his entire, policy of making sure that less people vote in elections continues to be espoused by the Republican Party. So there's that. Well, what we should do is we should be doing the opposite. And that's why we should really shine a light and focus on this problem. We need to make voting more accessible. Now, I'm not saying online voting. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, that's a great idea. I actually think that's not a great idea because of insecurities in the system and accountability. I actually do believe we should go back to hand-counted paper ballots. That is actually accountable. It's hack-proof. You can't really fudge the results, at least not, I guess, as easily as you could change ballot totals on a machine that you hack into. So that's one thing that I think that we should do. We should also have a voter holiday, a paid voter holiday, which I think would be excellent. And, of course, working on trying to end these unfair voter purges. Now, again, there is a reason to purge voters. But we have to make sure that the people who do so, who are in charge of that, have proper oversight and don't do so to give one party an advantage over the other. And so for to do some of those things and actually really have good accountable elections, that's what we need to do. And unfortunately, the Republican Party is not doing that. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation. If you haven't already, please give us a like and share. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow. Same time, same place, right here. YouTube.com/TYTNation. We'll be doing another Sunday stream, by the way, which should be a lot of fun. I'm going to try to get the YouTube integration to work. And I'm going to be working on that later today. So we'll see if that happens. Hopefully it does. Because I do want to have that show come up on YouTube as well. So, because we have a lot of fun there. All right. Anyway, thank you all. Thanks for the likes. Thank you for the shares. Thank you for the super chats. If you haven't already, also consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. Other than that, thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.